Imagine you wake up one morning and every fruit, every vegetable, every flowering plant on Earth is gone. The grocery store shelves are bare. The fields are silent. The trees have stopped producing. And the single reason this happened, fits inside something smaller than your thumbnail. That's not a dystopian movie. That's a real scientific projection. And the creature responsible for preventing it? It has been living beside us for over 100 million years, and we still don't truly understand it. Today, we go inside the world of bees. Not the cute, cartoonish version you learned about as a child. The real version. The terrifying, intelligent, almost alien version, where colonies make collective decisions without a single leader, where scout bees literally dance to describe coordinates in three-dimensional space, where a swarm can recognize your face, remember it, and hold a grudge. This is the story of the most important creature on Earth, and it's far stranger than anything science fiction has ever imagined. Before we go any further, if you've ever been curious about the hidden machinery of nature, the kind of stuff that sounds impossible until you see the evidence, then you are exactly where you belong. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what we cover on this channel will permanently change the way you see the world around you. Now, let's go. To understand what we're really dealing with, you have to travel back, way back, 100 million years, give or take. The supercontinent Gondwana is splitting apart. Dinosaurs still walk the earth. And somewhere in the chaos of ancient forests, a small, predatory wasp makes a decision, whether by instinct or accident, we'll never know, to stop hunting insects and start eating pollen instead. That single shift in diet would eventually produce the bee, and the bee would go on to reshape the entire living world. But let's be honest about something right from the start. When most people think about bees, they picture a soft, fuzzy bumblebee hovering over a sunflower. They think of honey on toast, maybe a lazy summer afternoon. They think harmless. They think simple. They are so wrong. There are over 20,000 known species of bees on this planet. 20,000. They live on every continent except Antarctica. They come in every size, from the tiny Perdita minima, barely 2 millimeters long, smaller than a grain of rice, to the Wallace's giant bee of Indonesia, which has a wingspan wider than your thumb is long and was once believed to be completely extinct. Scientists rediscovered it in 2019, alive, hidden deep in the Indonesian rainforest, almost like it didn't want to be found. But when people talk about bees, they usually mean the one species that built an empire, Apis mellifera, the western honeybee, the one that makes honey, the one that pollinates crops, the one that, if it disappeared tomorrow, would trigger a collapse in global food production so catastrophic that the United Nations has called bees the third most important living being on Earth, behind only humans and, arguably, not much else. And inside an Apis mellifera hive, something is happening that stretches the very definition of what we call intelligence. Picture this. It's a warm spring morning. Inside a hive of roughly 60,000 bees, a crisis is unfolding. The colony needs a new home. The current one is too small, and there isn't enough space for the queen to lay eggs, for the workers to store honey, for the colony to survive the coming winter. Something must be done. A decision must be made. But here's what makes this strange. Here's what should keep you up at night. There is no CEO in this hive. No president. No single brain calling the shots. The queen, despite what her title suggests, doesn't run anything. She doesn't issue commands. She doesn't strategize. She lays eggs. That's it. The actual governance of 60,000 living creatures happens through a system so elegant, so eerily democratic, that it puts most human institutions to shame. Scouts, a small group of older worker bees, fan out across the landscape. They search for potential new home sites. A hollow tree, a gap in a rock wall, a dry corner of an abandoned structure. Each scout investigates her candidate location, measures it, tests it with her body, evaluates the entrance size, the internal volume, the sun exposure, the drainage. She is running a real estate assessment, solo, with no instructions and no checklist. When she returns, she reports her findings not in words, but in dance. The waggle dance is one of the most astonishing things in nature. And that's not hyperbole. When Carl von Frisch first described it in the 1940s, the scientific community thought he was making it up. It was too sophisticated, too structured, too human. Here's how it works. A scout bee returns to the swarm, finds a surface, and begins to dance. She walks in a straight line while waggling her abdomen from side to side, then loops back, then repeats. Simple enough, but embedded inside that dance is a complete set of GPS coordinates. The angle of the waggle run, relative to vertical, tells the other bees the angle of the destination relative to the sun. If she dances straight up, the destination is toward the sun. 30 degrees to the left of vertical means fly 30 degrees to the left of the sun. The duration of the waggle run encodes the distance. A 1-second waggle run means roughly 1 kilometer away. 2 seconds, 2 kilometers. The vigor and enthusiasm of the dance communicates the scout's assessment of the site's quality. A mediocre site gets a half-hearted dance. An exceptional one gets a furious, vibrating, repeat performance that draws other bees to investigate. And this is where it becomes something close to magic, other scouts debate. When multiple scouts return with competing locations, they each dance for their preferred site. Other bees watch. Some go investigate the sites themselves. They return and either support the original dancer or dance for their own site. Over hours, sometimes days, the colony builds a consensus. The dances that attract the most attention, the sites that get the most support, gradually dominate. The losing scouts literally stop dancing, one by one, until only one location remains. The hive has voted, and it moves. No leader called the vote. No authority broke the tie. A collective of insects without a single neuron in common reached a shared decision through pure, decentralized intelligence. Researchers who study human decision theory have spent entire careers studying this process, not to understand bees, but to apply the same principles to corporate management and political systems. The bees figured it out 100 million years ago. Now let's talk about the queen, because she deserves her own chapter in this story, and almost nothing about her is what you expect. A queen bee does not run the hive, but she is, in a very real sense, its mother. Every single bee in a colony, every worker, every drone, every future queen is her offspring. She can live for up to 5 years, which is extraordinary in the insect world, and in that time, she can lay up to 2,000 eggs per day. 2,000. In a single day? That means in her lifetime, she might produce well over 1 million bees. But here's the thing that makes the queen's story dark, almost mythological. She doesn't choose to be a queen. A queen is made. When a colony needs a new queen, because the old one is failing, or because the colony is preparing to split, the workers select a handful of ordinary larvae. Larvae that, under any other circumstances, would have grown up to be regular worker bees. Then they make a choice that will define that bee's entire life. They feed it royal jelly. Royal jelly is a secretion produced by glands in the heads of young worker bees. It looks like a thick, off-white cream. Every larva gets some of it in the first few days of life. But the chosen larvae, the future queens, are bathed in it. They swim in royal jelly. They are sealed into special wax chambers called queen cells, which hang from the comb like teardrops, and they receive continuous royal jelly for the entirety of their larval development. And that food, that single dietary change, rewires their DNA. Not metaphorically, literally. Researchers discovered that royal jelly triggers epigenetic changes that activate or silence entire sets of genes. The larva that would have been a worker, sterile, short-lived, small, becomes a queen. Fertile, long-lived, 40% larger. Her ovaries develop fully. Her brain wires differently. Her behavior becomes completely transformed. Same egg, different food, completely different creature. And when she emerges from her cell, the first thing she does is murder. If there are other developing queens in the hive, still sealed in their wax cells, the newly emerged queen moves through the comb like an assassin. She finds each sealed cell, bites through the wax, and stings the rival queen inside before she can emerge. Worker bees sometimes assist by vibrating the cells to suppress the developing queens within. The killing is deliberate, systematic, and efficient. If 2 queens emerge simultaneously, which does happen, there is a battle. The workers clear a space. The queens fight until one is dead. And then, finally, there is only one. The new queen now faces her next challenge. She has never mated. She will need to leave the hive, the one place she will ever call home, and venture out into open air for the first and last time of her life. She takes what's called a mating flight. She rises high into the sky and releases pheromones that act like a chemical beacon. Drones, male bees whose sole biological purpose is this single moment, detect the scent from extraordinary distances and chase her. She flies faster, higher. Only the strongest, fastest drones can catch her. She will mate with between 10 and 20 of them, mid-flight, storing their sperm in a specialized organ called the spermatheca. The drones that mate with her die immediately after. Their reproductive organs are ripped from their bodies during the act, a biological feature so bluntly brutal that it reads like something from a horror novel. The queen returns to the hive. She will never leave again. The sperm she collected from a dozen or more different fathers will last her entire life, fertilizing millions of eggs across years of continuous laying. Now, let's talk about the workers. Because if the queen is the mother of the colony, the workers are its soul. And the way they live is simultaneously extraordinary and heartbreaking. A worker bee lives, in summer, for roughly 6 weeks. 6 weeks. She emerges from her cell, and from her very first moment, she has work to do. In the early days of her life, she serves as a nurse bee, cleaning cells, caring for larvae, feeding the young with pollen paste and royal jelly. As she ages, her physiology literally changes. Different glands activate at different stages of her life. She produces wax. She builds comb. She guards the entrance. She fans the hive to regulate temperature. She forages. By the final 2 to 3 weeks of her life, she is a forager, flying miles from the hive, visiting flower after flower, collecting nectar and pollen, navigating by the position of the sun, by landmarks, by the Earth's magnetic field. She does this until her wings literally wear out, until the cells of her flight muscles tear apart from use. She works herself to death, and she does it willingly, because the colony demands it, because 60,000 sisters depend on it. A single worker bee, in her entire lifetime, will produce approximately 1/12 of a teaspoon of honey. 1/12. The honey sitting in a standard jar on your kitchen shelf represents the entire life's work of roughly 1,200 bees. Let that settle. And about that honey, the process that creates it is far weirder than most people realize. It starts with nectar, a sugary liquid secreted by flowers to attract pollinators. A forager bee collects nectar by inserting her proboscis into a flower's nectary and drawing it up like a straw into a specialized stomach called the honey stomach, which is entirely separate from her digestive stomach. She can carry a load of nectar that approaches her own body weight. When she returns to the hive, she passes the nectar directly into the mouth of a house bee through a process called trophallaxis, a regurgitation and transfer that happens mouth to mouth, repeatedly, among multiple bees. Each time this happens, enzymes in the bee's saliva break down complex sugars into simpler ones. Then the bees spread the partially processed nectar across the open cells of the comb and fan it furiously with their wings. The airflow evaporates the water content. The nectar starts at roughly 80% water and must be reduced to below 20% before it becomes shelf-stable. When the water content drops to the right level, the bees cap the cell with wax. The honey is sealed. It can, theoretically, last forever. And that's not an exaggeration. Archaeologists excavating ancient Egyptian tombs have found sealed honey vessels that are over 3,000 years old. The honey inside was still edible, still chemically stable. Because honey, by its very nature, is antimicrobial. Its low water content, its acidity, its hydrogen peroxide content. Bees are, essentially, producing a natural preservative that has outlasted every civilization that ever tried to use it. Now, somewhere in this story, you might be wondering, how dangerous is all of this, really? How worried should you be? For most people, most of the time, a bee is a minor inconvenience. A sting, a small red welt, a few minutes of pain. But bees can kill. And the story of how they do it is one that blurs the line between the natural world and nightmare. Let's begin with the Africanized honeybee, sometimes called the killer bee, a name that sounds sensational until you understand what it actually means. In the 1950s, Brazilian scientists were attempting to breed a more productive honeybee by crossing European honeybees with a subspecies from southern Africa. The African bees were hardier, more disease-resistant, and more productive in tropical climates. The experiment was, by most scientific measures, a success. Then, in 1957, 26 swarms escaped from the research facility. Over the following decades, those 26 swarms spread northward through South America, into Central America, into Mexico, and eventually into the southern United States, breeding with local populations as they went. The Africanized bee inherited the African bee's venom, roughly the same potency as the European honeybees. It was not a supercharged venom. What made them dangerous was something else entirely: aggression, or more precisely, vigilance. An Africanized colony responds to a threat not with a few guard bees, but with the entire hive. If something disturbs them, they can mobilize thousands of bees within seconds. They will pursue a threat for up to a quarter of a mile. They respond to vibration, to dark colors, to the smell of exhaled breath. People have been stung thousands of times in single attacks. The death toll across the Americas since their escape runs into the hundreds, and the story of these bees remains one of the strangest unintended ecological disasters in modern scientific history. But even the Africanized honeybee looks manageable compared to what lives in certain corners of Asia. The Asian giant hornet, Vespa mandarinia, is not a bee, strictly speaking, but it hunts them. And the way it hunts them is the kind of thing that once you learn it, you cannot unhear. A single Asian giant hornet scout can locate a honeybee hive. When she does, she marks it with a pheromone, a chemical scent signal. Within hours, she returns with a small group of her sisters. A raid party of 30 hornets can completely destroy a hive of 30,000 honeybees in under 90 minutes. The hornets bite the bees apart. They don't sting them. They simply tear them to pieces with their mandibles. The entrance of the hive becomes a massacre. Beheads litter the ground. The hornets are simply too large, too armored, too powerful for any individual bee to fight. But here is where this story makes a turn into something astonishing. Japanese honeybees have evolved a countermeasure. When a scout hornet enters the hive to mark it, the bees respond instantly. Hundreds of workers rush the hornet and engulf it in a living ball. A ball of bees. They pack so tightly that they form a sphere, and then, together, they vibrate. Every bee in that ball vibrates its flight muscles simultaneously. The temperature inside the ball rises and rises. It climbs to about 46 degrees Celsius, 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just above the hornet's lethal temperature threshold and just below the bee zone. The hornet cooks alive inside a living furnace. They didn't sting it. They didn't bite it. They used thermodynamics. They used physics to kill something 10 times their size. European honeybees, imported to Asia and not evolved alongside the giant hornet, cannot do this. They have no countermeasure. They are simply destroyed. This is a defense mechanism that took thousands of generations to develop, an evolutionary arms race written in heat and death. Let's talk about vision, because this is where bees cross into territory that starts to feel genuinely alien. A bee's eye is a compound eye, not a single lens like yours, but thousands of tiny individual lenses packed together into a hemisphere. Each lens points in a slightly different direction, capturing a slightly different piece of the visual field. The result is a mosaic image, lower resolution than human vision, but with a field of view so wide it borders on panoramic. They can see nearly all around themselves simultaneously. But here's what truly sets them apart. Bees can see ultraviolet light, wavelengths that are completely invisible to human eyes. And flowers have evolved over millions of years to exploit this fact. Many flowers have elaborate ultraviolet patterns, nectar guides, essentially landing strips, that point bees toward their pollen and nectar. To a human eye, a field of yellow sunflowers looks uniformly yellow. To a bee, each flower is blazing with a complex pattern of ultraviolet markings, like airport runways seen from the air. We have lived alongside flowering plants our entire evolutionary history and never once seen what a bee sees when it looks at a flower. The world we inhabit and the world bees inhabit are literally different places, and their visual ability goes beyond spectrum. Bees can detect the polarization of light, the angle at which light waves vibrate. On a cloudy day, when the sun isn't visible, bees can still determine the sun's position based on the polarization pattern of skylight. They use this as a compass, a celestial navigation system built into their eyes. They also process visual information at roughly 4 to 5 times the flicker rate of human vision. A bee watching a flower in a breeze sees every individual movement in high-speed clarity. Things that blur together for us are sharply distinct to them. Put a bee in front of a film, even modern high-definition film, and it sees not a moving image but a series of still frames, flickering, disconnected. Our cinema is invisible to them. Their world moves faster than ours in ways we can barely comprehend. Now here's the part that tends to make people genuinely uncomfortable. The part where it stops feeling like a nature documentary and starts feeling like a surveillance thriller. Bees can recognize human faces. Not vaguely, not approximately. In laboratory tests, bees were trained to associate specific human photographs with sugar water rewards. They learned. They remembered. They could reliably identify the correct face from a lineup of other human faces, even when the photos were rearranged, rotated, or shown in different lighting conditions. The mechanism they use isn't the same as human facial recognition. They process faces as a configuration of parts, a holistic pattern, the way you might recognize a constellation. But the outcome is functionally the same. They remember who you are. And in the wild, this matters. If you've disturbed a hive, a bee that has seen your face and connected you with threat can alert others. It can target you specifically. Individual bees have been observed following and stinging specific individuals who had previously disturbed their colony while ignoring others nearby. They have a memory, and that memory includes you. Let's stop for a moment and think about scale, because we've been talking about individual behaviors and individual bees. But a hive is not a collection of individuals. It is, in many ways, a single organism. Biologists have a term for it, a superorganism. The colony breathes. In summer, the hive must be kept at precisely 35 degrees Celsius, the temperature at which larvae develop correctly. If it gets too hot, fanner bees post themselves at the entrance and ventilate. If it gets too cold, the cluster of bees contracts, and each bee shivers its flight muscles to generate body heat, collectively warming the core. The colony sweats. It regulates. It responds to injury, disease, and invasion with immune-like responses. When parasites or pathogens enter the hive, bees engage in what researchers call hygienic behavior, identifying infected larvae, uncapping their cells, and removing them from the hive before the infection spreads. Different colonies show different levels of this behavior. Some colonies are better at it than others. It's heritable. It's essentially an immune strategy encoded not in a single genome, but distributed across a population of individuals behaving as one. The hive even communicates through chemistry. Pheromones, chemical signals produced by different castes and different situations, circulate constantly. The queen's pheromone blend, called queen's substance, suppresses the reproductive development of worker bees and tells the colony she is present and healthy. When she ages or dies and her pheromone production drops, the colony detects it within hours and begins preparing to raise a new queen. Alarm pheromones released by guard bees during a threat spread through the hive like wildfire, recruiting defenders within seconds. Even the dead release chemical signals, a fatty acid blend that triggers removal behavior, ensuring corpses are carried out of the hive before they can spread disease. The hive knows things no single bee could know. It responds to situations no single bee could perceive. It is, in the truest sense, something greater than the sum of its parts. And all of this, every dance, every sting, every drop of honey, every carefully regulated temperature gradient, exists in service of a single, extraordinary purpose: pollination. Roughly 80% of all flowering plant species on Earth require animal pollination to reproduce. And of all the pollinators in the world, butterflies, moths, beetles, flies, bats, birds, none comes close to the ecological impact of bees. When a bee lands on a flower and collects nectar and pollen, it carries some of that pollen to the next flower it visits. If that flower is the same species, pollination occurs. The plant can form a seed, a fruit, a nut, a new plant. This process, multiplied by billions of foraging trips per day across millions of colonies worldwide, drives the reproduction of the plants that anchor nearly every terrestrial ecosystem on Earth. 1/3 of the food humans consume directly depends on bee pollination. Not indirectly, not distantly, directly. Almonds cannot be commercially produced without bee pollination. Apples, blueberries, coffee, cucumbers, avocados, dozens of critical crops would collapse without bees. The global economic value of pollination services provided by bees is estimated at over $150 billion annually. That's a conservative estimate. That's the financial value of something a bee does without knowing it matters. Without knowing it's doing something that keeps billions of people fed. Without knowing we exist. And yet, despite all of this, despite being indispensable, despite being irreplaceable, bees are in crisis. Since the early 2000s, beekeepers across North America and Europe began reporting something deeply alarming. Their hives were empty, not collapsing in the traditional sense. There were no bodies, no obvious disease, no signs of attack. The bees simply left, or vanished. Worker bees flew out of their hives one morning and never returned. The queen was left behind. The brood was abandoned. The honey was untouched. Scientists named it colony collapse disorder, and for years it defied explanation. Autopsies of affected hives turned up evidence of viral infections, fungal pathogens, and parasites, but no single cause. The picture that slowly emerged was not one villain, but a conspiracy of them. A parasitic mite called Varroa destructor, which feeds on developing bees and transmits a suite of debilitating viruses while doing so. Pesticides, particularly a class called neonicotinoids, which disrupt bee navigation and memory, making foragers unable to find their way home. Habitat loss, eliminating the diversity of wildflowers bees need for nutrition. Monoculture farming, replacing varied landscapes with single-crop deserts that offer bees the nutritional equivalent of a diet consisting entirely of one food. Individually, any one of these pressures might be manageable. Together, they create a perfect storm. A colony weakened by Varroa is more susceptible to viruses. A colony poisoned by pesticides loses its best navigators. A colony foraging in a nutritionally impoverished landscape can't build the immune reserves to fight off infection. The stresses compound each other, and hives, already under pressure, collapse. In the United States, beekeepers have lost, on average, nearly 40% of their managed colonies every year since 2006. Every year, the replacements are made, new queens are raised, new packages of bees are sold. The industry sustains itself through tremendous effort. But the underlying pressures have not gone away. Wild bee populations across the world are declining sharply. Some regions of China now rely on human hand pollination of crops because the local bee population has been so devastated. People climb apple trees with small paintbrushes, transferring pollen by hand, flower by flower, doing the work that bees used to do for free. This is not a distant hypothetical. It's already happening. But here is what I want you to carry with you. Because this story could end in disaster, and maybe it will. But it hasn't yet. And the reason it hasn't, the reason we still have bees at all after everything we've thrown at them, is that bees are, on a long enough timescale, almost undefeatable. They survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. They survived the ice ages. They have survived every mass extinction event in the past 100 million years, not because they are strong in the way we think of strength, but because they are adaptable, and because they are collective. When conditions change, colonies that can adapt, propagate. Genetic diversity, the result of queens mating with multiple drones, ensures that within a single colony there are bees with different behavioral tendencies, different physiological traits, different strengths. Some are better at finding food. Some are more hygienic. Some are more defensive. When the environment shifts, the colony doesn't break. It flexes. In recent years, researchers have found wild bee colonies that appear to be developing resistance to Varroa mites, not through human intervention, but through natural selection. These colonies, called survivor colonies, are being studied intensely. Their genetics are being mapped. Their behaviors are being cataloged, because inside those survivor hives might be the blueprint for a more resilient future. Bee breeders are crossing survivor genetics with productive genetics. Farmers are beginning to plant wildflower strips at the edges of their fields, giving bees the nutritional diversity they need. Some governments have moved to restrict the neonicotinoid pesticides most harmful to bee cognition. The picture is not entirely dark, but make no mistake, what happens to bees in the next 50 years is, in a very real sense, what happens to us. We are more dependent on them than they have ever been on us. We always have been, even when we didn't know it. There is a philosopher named Maurice Maeterlinck who wrote a book about bees in 1901 called The Life of the Bee. It was written before we understood waggle dances, before we understood pheromone communication, before we understood epigenetics or compound vision or colony collapse disorder. And yet, in it, he wrote something that has stayed with scientists and naturalists for over a century. He called the hive a city with one mind. He wasn't using metaphor exactly. He was reaching for something true. He had watched the hive, spent hours beside it, tried to understand it, and come to the same conclusion that modern scientists have reached with far more sophisticated tools, that the colony is a kind of consciousness. Distributed, alien, completely unlike our own, but real. Responsive, intelligent in ways that resist our definitions of the word. We share this planet with 60,000 species of animal. Most of them, we will never fully understand. But the bee, this small, furry, ancient creature that flies 3 miles to find a flower and comes home carrying coordinates encoded in dance, may be the one that most deserves our awe. The next time you see a bee land on a flower, stop for a moment. Watch it. Consider what is happening in that tiny body. The calculations being run, the senses firing, the memories being recorded, the invisible architecture of the hive it's building in the air around it. And consider what we would lose if it were gone. Not just the honey, not just the almonds and the blueberries and the coffee. The whole shape of life, as we know it, would quietly unravel. That's not drama. That's not exaggeration. That's the staggering, almost unbearable truth of what it means to live in a world built, flower by flower, by a creature the size of your thumbnail.